Hello everyone. This is my presentation from my Pride project. Please excuse my amateur videography and my childhood bedroom as the backdrop, but I'm not there in person, so this will have to do. Each day in our jobs as teachers of low-income students in Charlotte, we face a variety of problems. I'm sure you've been talking about them in training, from below-level reading levels to just an unfamiliarity with things like parts of speech. We do our best to close the gap. Over the past few weeks, and for some of you a year, you have heard a lot about the achievement gap, from how we slow it down to why does it exist. Today, I want to talk to you about a different type of gap that I discovered during my Pride research. I would call it the reality gap. During my first year of teaching at Albemarle Road, I expected to encounter many challenges. The reality gap was not one I was expected for, and I probably didn't realize it existed until about 2 weeks ago. Here is what I discovered. The reality is simple. This is the most current CMS graduation rate. It means that 66% of our students in CMS are graduating. 2/3, not great. This percent ranges from 58% to 63% at the most common high schools that my students will attend. Although this percent is better than larger cities such as Philly, Baltimore, or Chicago, it is certainly less than ideal, saying that 2/3 of our students receive a diploma, meaning 1/3 leave without that minimum. My next number. Out of the 3 main high schools my students will attend, Independence, Rocky River, and Garinger, this is the percent of graduating seniors over the past 3 years. 59% will attend a post-secondary education, from college to a university to a trade school or a technical school. This is very similar to other cities across the nation. Reality is this. Out of all the students who attend those institutions, 41% of our CMS graduates will complete their first year. So by the end of the first year, we've lost half of our entries. Definitely a dismal number. For CMS schools, only 23% of all students who attended complete their degree in its entirety. This means less than a quarter of those who attended leave with a college diploma. To me, this means the reality is harsh. It has lots of ugly numbers that are certainly not in our students' favors. Our students are not only less likely to succeed because of their struggling reading levels and math skills. This is the achievement gap. You've talked about it. You know it. You know the numbers are not in our students' favors. So what makes the reality gap different? Over the past 2 months, I have interviewed about 60 people, about 15 students, and the remaining of that 60 are influencers, from neighbors to grandparents to parents of students that I had that are highly involved in their students' education, so much that they either met with me at a coffee shop or replied to my email very promptly to answer a survey. The surveys were very similar, and I gave them to students, as well as influencers. And the results were startling. That's where I came up with the reality gap. One of the first questions that struck me was this: what job do you envision yourself, to the students, or your child having in 15 years? These are just some of the answers that I saw. Take a look. You can see that I had things from doctors and lawyers, future LeBron Jameses, teachers, veterinarians, restaurant owners. This was only the beginning of the list. And you can see that their goals are big. Their goals are ambitious. They envision great things for themselves, which is what, as teachers, we inspire them to do. But as I look, and as I know the students that go with each one of these answers, and the statistics I just showed you, I began to think, is this possible? My next question that I asked influencers was, what would it take for your child to accomplish those things that you dream for them? Mrs. Hargrove gave me a very similar answer. I saw this answer within 3 steps 22 times throughout my survey. So I asked them, tell me every step you can think of. And this was Mrs. Hargrove's answer. She said to me, and I quote, "In order to be a doctor, Kasha will need to stay in school, go to college, and then after she graduates college, she'll need to go to med school." I asked her if she had any steps to add, and she said that is all it will take. It sounds simple to Mrs. Hargrove, and even to me. It's easy for me to listen to that answer and say, yes, Kasha's going to be a doctor. But if I think back to my college process, I realize that this is not it. There are so many small nuances that make college and post-secondary schools realistic for you at that time. From, back to the reality, from things such as the SAT to the FAFSA to understanding how to get into competitive high school programs. Although Kasha worked hard for me for an entire year, she grew 2 years in her reading level. She came to me as a 3.4 and left me as a 5.4, which is great growth, but it means, unfortunately, that she is a 5th grade, 4th month reader, going to the 8th grade. It also means she scored a 3 on her EOG, meaning she was proficient, but I know her, and I know that her writing is still well below grade level. So this reality doesn't quite match Mrs. Hargrove's 3-step plan. When speaking with Mrs. Moreno, mother of one of my favorite students, Hugo, I asked her a simple question. I asked all my parents this question, and I got a very similar answer 60% of the time. Tell me everything you know about college, the college process, since that is a dream you have for your child. She simply answered, and I quote, "I know nothing about college. I know it is something I want for him, but I did not go. My husband did not go. Hugo is the oldest child in our family, so I have not thought about it yet. I have not done it. I know very little." I then tried to reassure her by saying that it was okay because Hugo is in the 7th grade. She has 5 years to figure that part out. My next question was, Tell me what you know about competitive high schools, something I dream of for many of my students. Her answer, unfortunately, was similar, saying that she doesn't know the options Hugo has, and unfortunately, as a teacher of Hugo, I did not inform her of those, which is something that I am not certainly prideful of, but my Pride project reminded me of. From all the surveys, this was my most startling find, and I don't have a little visual for this. I asked a question, a very simple question. After they told me all about their visions, all about their dreams, I said, how certain are you that this will come true? 1 being not certain at all, 2 being a little certain, 3 being somewhat certain, 4 being mostly certain, 5 being absolutely certain that what you told me today in some way, shape, or form will take place. Out of the 60 people I interviewed, 100% answered either a 4 or a 5, meaning that they are absolutely or very confident that their dreams will indeed come true. In my heart, that makes me very, very happy. But in my head, that makes me realize that my job as a teacher is not done. Because as Mrs. Hargrove and Mrs. Moreno and Mrs. Blackjack and Mrs. Wilson all demonstrated in their surveys, they don't know the steps. So my question for you is, what is our role? We can't go in and crush dreams. We are teachers. We believe in our students. But we also need to be thinkers and realize the reality. We need to see their dreams, but yet understand the statistics. So, what, as a classroom teacher, do I do to close the reality gap? After my Pride project, I made 2 commitments. So at the end of next year, I can say, I closed that gap between reality and dream for my students. So I have confidence that their dreams will also come true. My 2 solutions are this. 1 is information. Our influencers and our students need information. Not about our content, which we give them every day, but about the world that we want them to conquer. My 2nd is opportunities. We need to give our students opportunities of all kinds. Opportunities to meet people that they wouldn't meet in their everyday lives. Opportunities to learn things that they wouldn't typically learn. We need to find them opportunities like Duke Tip, the Governor's School. All of those sort of door openers that can transform a child and give him or her the opportunity to interact with someone who has so much real-world context to share with him or her. So I have made a commitment to close the reality gap. It exists. I have proven it.
It's 9 o'clock.
I apologize, that's my Mac computer. The reality gap exists. My question for you is, what do you plan to do this year to close this gap?